and deliverance from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Any petitions? Notices? No notices. Questions without notice? 45 minutes. The Honourable Governor for Northern Province.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. My questions without notice are to the Minister for Finance and Planning. And they are in relation to an incident that occurred 2 years ago. The apparent or the alleged hacking of our IFMS system. Around this time last year, I asked a question as to what was going to happen in regards to investigating that particular situation. And I was informed, or we were informed, the House was informed by the then Minister for Finance, the Honourable John Pundari, that the matter had been handed over to the NIO to investigate. It's now 1 year. Some of us are still having these IFMS issues in our provinces. And we would like to know what has been done since the NIO has been tasked to investigate the apparent alleged hacking of the IFMS system. What measures have we put in place since then to ensure that this does not happen again? Thank you.
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the good governor for this particular question. In relation to the malware attack that happened last year, Mr. Speaker, through you, as this House is aware, when that incident took place, the Cabinet took certain reactive measures to what was seen as an attack on our system that governs our financial system, especially within government. And NEC gave certain direction to then the Minister of Finance to undertake findings as to what would be the cause of that malware attack on the IFMS system. Now, Mr. Speaker, the House is aware that IFMS system is a system that currently most of our provinces and our districts are using. So when the central agencies of government were affected by this malware attack, so were our districts and provinces, and we had to take measures which included us migrating some of our accounts from IFMS system to the COVID-19 accounts and other subsidiary accounts that we set up so that we could create leeways for us to deal with that and at the same time establish what was the cause. Now, in response to the question of what was done, yes, as I am briefed, NIO, including our own department at National Finance Department, through the ICT department, division within finance was tasked to establish what was the cause of this malware attack. And I will say to this floor that I have received preliminary findings as to what was the cause from our department. And I am also told that the NIO, which comes under reports to the Office of the Prime Minister, was also given a copy of their findings. Now, from our side at Finance, I was not satisfied, but I wanted a second opinion on the report that came to my office. So since then, taking office, when we formed this government last year, I've asked my secretary to get a more expert opinion on the report that is available at Finance, and then we can have a more conclusive finding and I can make it available to this floor. And that thinking has come about by not just bringing one report to the floor, which would be from our department, but getting someone more competent, especially in the field of forensic IT and IT specialists to have the know-hows to be able to track this type of malware attack, and at the same time establish if there's individuals or organizations or corporate entities who are responsible for such an attack on our system. So getting a more specialized company to come on board and give us a second opinion, and I can provide to Parliament, Cabinet, and for the interest of the general public on what actually happened through our own investigation, and at the same time a second opinion from a more specialist. So that direction has already gone to my department, and we're working in. I assure our good governor, plus our other governors and members on this floor and the general public that in less than 2 or 3 months, 4 months, as soon as that report is made available by the independent IT company, we will provide to the floor, Cabinet, and the general public as well. And I thank the governor for giving such a question so that I could be able to respond on where we are as to that malware attack since it was affecting us last year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Governor of Long Anger.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to take this opportunity to ask this question without notice to the Honorable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I just want to say that we, especially the governors, when we left the PNC-led government, like all members of Parliament at the time, we had our own reasons to depart from PNC. One of the fundamental reasons why the governors left the then PNC government is to see provincial governments to be given the respect that is enshrined in the Constitution. The Constitution specifically talks about 3 levels of government. This is the 4th year we are in as a government, led by the Prime Minister. I want to know when this specific demarcation of powers and responsibilities is going to be sorted out. We have many issues in this country. And one of the issues that we have is not following the laws of this country. The provincial governments are there by law. We had a 2nd level of government. For the last 4 to 8 years, the provincial governments are losing the mandated role. So time Mibla lose PNC, Mibla come here, long look in respect, now regain our mandate. Prime Minister, please tell the nation, what is your plan? In the last PNC government, they wanted to devolve powers. And they named three provinces. You coming up now, Giamania. We have mandated leaders to lead the provinces. Now we're not going to be sitting here quiet as our mandate is being robbed. And a lot of us governors left because of the attention that DDA was getting. And this is not against open members or anybody. Mr. Speaker, if you look at it, who is running this country? The country is supposed to be led by the open members. You're supposed to be in committees. This parliament is supposed to be busy during the parliamentary recess. If you come to parliament during recess, there's no action here. Open members must concentrate on providing leadership at a national level and leave provinces to mandated governments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable, before me ask him, Honorable Prime Minister Long, Sanap na beg him this ask him. Honorable Governor Long, when I'm asking blue through.
Me ask him, Prime Minister Long, make sure, Sama, talk survey, whether there's going to be a devolution of powers or not, to making sure that we effectively perform the duties as allowed by the Constitution of this country. Thank you.
Honorable Prime Minister.
All right, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me say Happy New Year to you. For this year, you assumed as chair for the first time today. Thank you for your presence at the chair one more time. Let me appreciate Governor Enga for asking this important question. I agree with him wholeheartedly that the provincial government system is an important system of government. Lest we forget, it was a Pangu Party policy in 1970s that set up the provincial government system in our country. And I stand here not to be the first Pangu Party leader or leading government to remove or erode the power of our provincial government systems. I am a firm believer that the sub-national government level are strong corner posts of all parts of our country that houses what we have today, our sovereignty. We have seen in the past an element of destabilizing the structure that has been detrimental to our country. None can be more clearer than our current legacy of Bougainville provincial government that we are trying to get over with in new arrangements with the people of Bougainville. And so, Mr. Speaker, from the outset, let me assure Governor Iparas and all governors that the government that I lead have not been working to undermine our provincial governments. In fact, we have been trying our very best to empower our provincial government, work and strengthen our provincial governments. You would have also reference made to the autonomy conversations. Mr. Speaker, if I could inform this House, the previous government's conversations about autonomy was made in a policy vacuum. There was no clear definition of what autonomy entails. And as we arrived on board, my discussions with Eastern Britain, New Ireland Provincial Government, and also Enga Provincial Government, the three provincial governments that were designated to have a greater autonomy, my conversations was you cannot talk about functional autonomy without economic empowerment. What is the relevance of functional autonomy when you are still dependent on Wagani to support those functions? We must match the functional autonomy with an equal fundraising ability at the provincial level to ensure you sustain those functions that are autonomous to your province. Those were the key issues. We attempted to make a meeting with our governors over the last 3 years. All of you governors would have noted the work that was done by what exactly are the issues of decentralization, what exactly are the issues of empowerment you need at the provincial government. Because one thing we agree here, Mr. Speaker, the government that I lead, in fact, the party that I lead, is a strong proponent of provincial government system. Going forward now, 48 years on, we need to entrench the system, but in a better way, that the systems we establish do not become itself an impediment for proper delivery of services to our people and becomes a well-oiled public service machinery and a government structure and systems that is delivering to expectations of our people. So it will be incumbent on all of us, the central government, national government, rather, and the provincial governments to convene to look on the issues of decentralization, and for the governors to come up with a clearer view and one position on what exactly entails autonomy and what exactly entails decentralization. Now, having said this, Mr. Speaker, not all is as bad as it may seem. The organic law on provincial and local level government is a superior law to all other subsidiary laws that administers function of service delivery in our country. Governors have a superior power, even much higher than the DDAs, who are operating the District Development Authority Act. And so all governors, your power is higher. All governors, for instance, your selection of administrator comes through the process that you have a key role inside. Your appointment, for instance, of the, and I just made reference to the provincial administrator. And so power, be as it may known today under the organic law and provincial level government, is there for governors to exercise freedom. In the past, when you have friction with Waigani, I believe in the last 3 years you didn't have friction with Waigani because you have a national government that is working incongruent to your issues you have in your provinces. So, and for further clarity as we go forward, especially in the tit-for-tat debate with DDAs, I think clearly in terms of functional alignment need to be espoused and expanded further, and we come up with a clear definition what is your functions and what is district's functions. And I should end by concluding, District Development Authorities is not a government. District Development Authority is just a delivery mechanism set to deliver to our districts and should be working in complementary with the provincial government. And if there is an issue, let us get to attend to this. I do not want to bring Papua New Guinea beyond 2025, 50th independent anniversary, with those structural impediments in the way. We need to clear them before 2025. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member Abao.
Honorable Speaker, I rise to ask a question without notice to the Honorable Minister for Petroleum and Energy, Member for Sinasina Yangugmo, and Leader of the Papua New Guinea National Party. Mr. Speaker, the party that I represent, our Development Party, its principal policy is power to the people. Literally, the party recognizes that the countries, communities, whether up on the tops of the mountains or down the valleys or the distant islands, must have access to electricity. Because we as a party believe that electricity positively impacts on lives, improves health, business, education, etc. However, as you and I have been experiencing, including the many power blackouts, and including the low electricity density, that is the coverage of our population, and Minister for State-Owned Enterprises could advise us on the actual coverage of electricity of the entire country. My view is that it's less than 30% of our people are covered by electricity. And therefore, the commitment before our nation hosted APEC that by 2030, 70% of our people should at least have access to power. But, Mr. Speaker, you and I know that covering the country through the main grid has been wanting for a long, long time. For example, my little district, Abao, is not far from Port Moresby, and the main grid stops at Kuikila, and it has stopped for 47 years, and I'm still waiting. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, what is the solution? And therefore, my question to the Honourable Minister. I believe, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member, we have a point of order. What's your point of order, Honourable
Mr. Speaker,
Minister?
those are very good questions, but he's raising electricity issues, and those are under the Minister of State-Owned Enterprises, Honourable William Duma, but he has referred to the Minister of Petroleum, so that's a confusion if that can be clarified, Mr. Speaker.
To choose the responsible minister, and the minister must listen to the question to understand why I have chosen.
Let me address the point of order, Honourable Member about Honourable Minister, now I'm sit down, I'm stop, Honourable Minister of Petroleum and Energy. So, Honourable Member about will ask him this question, and in order, local Minister of Power and Energy. So, Minister, Honorable Member, you can go ahead and ask your question, Honorable Minister.
Minister for Higher Education, but my question is not related to the electrification under the SOEs. My question now is on the off-grid, the small power systems in the country. Because like Abao, I have waited for 47 years to bring the main grid to Abao. I think it will take another 50 years for Abao to have electrification. And therefore, the nation now should really seriously look at off-grid electrification. That is small power systems throughout the countries, in the islands, in the remote areas, like what Catholic Mission has been doing with small hydro schemes in their church organizations throughout the country. Therefore, my question to the Honorable Minister is this. Being the Minister responsible for the National Energy Authority, I understand that this falls in the ambit of that area, and I also understand that the United Nations Development Program has been supporting through our government request, has been supporting NEA, and in particular to relook at the regulations of power systems in this country. And I, for one, Mr. Speaker, is very keen on the progress of the off-grid small power systems in this country. And therefore, my question is, Mr. Speaker, through you, Mr. Minister, I understand that the National Energy Authority is looking at the development of the regulations of the off-grid systems in this country. The question is, how far has those regulations been progressed, and will it be coming to the National Executive Council for clearance so that His Excellency the Governor General can clear it? Because the reason is, without the regulations, this enormous space for off-grid electrification will not be controlled. We need a regulation to be in place so that those who want to provide off-grid can use the regulation to guide them on how much voltage, what agreements they should have with the communities or the DDAs, who is going to be responsible, what are the dispute resolution issues, which all the regulations do. So, Speaker, I have negotiated with the UNDP, and UNDP has nominated Kupiano to be the trial for an off-grid system, but they cannot start without the availability of the regulations. And therefore, my one question is, Minister, can you please progress the regulations through to Cabinet? If you don't have the copy of it, I think I have forwarded a copy to the chairman of the NEA so that it can move this together, because I want the off-grid systems to be offered to our country, because the main grid will never reach the isolated parts of our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister of Petroleum and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the important question from the Honourable Member for Abao. Rural electrification is a very important part of the government work and activities. And on regulation, to get straight to the question that he's asked about whether or not our regulation for doing work in off-grid areas have been prepared, I want to assure the member that just as of yesterday, I communicated with the Managing Director for National Energy Authority, and he has assured me that a very substantial amount of work has already been done. So I expect that within the next 2 months or so, it should be finalized and we should be able to bring it to Cabinet for approval before it's signed off by the Governor General. So a lot of work has been put into it already. And I must point out that, Mr. Speaker, the National Energy Authority was created just short of 2 years ago. And only last year we appointed the Managing Director, and the systems and procedures being progressively established. But this off-grid, a set of regulation for the provision of off-grid power supply is not there, and donor agencies like the UNDP and even the, those people who have made commitment to supply us with rural electrification in the APEC 2018 APEC meeting. Are also keen to get into that area, but all of them are waiting for a regulatory framework which they could then follow to establish or get into that area off-grid to provide power. So I'm also aware, I've spoken to the representative of the United States government here in Port Moresby, and I'm assured that this ABAO project is one of the pilot projects. They are waiting for the regulations to be prepared. I've got an appointment to meet with that representative next week when this parliament adjourns, and we will crystallize our respective positions so that any donor agencies, foreign governments who want to help in that area can proceed. But the regulations are important, and we're putting every emphasis to it, and I want to assure the member and the parliament that we should have it ready within the next couple of months. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Governor of Long, Isivik.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is also related to what was asked by the good member for ABAO, but it's directed to the Minister for State Enterprises. Again, it's in relation to power. And let me preface the question by saying that over the last 2 decades, successive governments and ministers have actually failed to rectify the challenges in power in all of our towns and our cities. And one of the reasons why many of us were keen to change government in the last session, in the last parliament, was to try to fix some of these issues, and power being one of the more important ones. Now, it's gotten to a stage where our people actually make jokes about the lack of power. We have come to accept that power blackouts are normal in our country, and that it is now a part of our life. Everyone is buying generators. There's no improvement in terms of the regulations that govern whether someone has a generator, people using solar panels or other renewables. We basically have no regulation to govern all these things. Before it becomes an even bigger joke, I want to ask these questions to the minister. Number one, what is really the issue in terms of all these continuous blackouts? Is it the generation? Is it the transmission? Is it incompetent management? Is it a lack of capitalization? What is it? Please outline to the House and to the people of Papua New Guinea. The reason I ask the question is that in the provinces, the governors get blamed when there's no power. We get blamed when there's no water. We get blamed when even the police are not working. Things that are completely outside of our responsibility. The second question, why have we been unable to fix these problems over successive governments and successive ministers? If we can identify the problem, surely it shouldn't take 25 years to fix it. Or in our case, it shouldn't take 2 governments. We should be able to fix it in this government. It should take us a very clear outline timeline to fix this thing. My third question, when can the ratepayers of Papua New Guinea expect it to be fixed? Is the minister able to give this House and to give the people of Papua New Guinea a definite timeline when these issues will be fixed once and for all, so that we don't continue to joke about the fact that our country is the blackout capital of the world? Thank you, Governor, for Morobe. And can the minister cause this range of suggested improvements to be published in the newspapers so all the people of Papua New Guinea can be informed? Finally, why doesn't the power hotline work? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister of State Enterprise.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the good governor of East Pacific Province for these very important questions. I'd like to start by
answering the last one first. Why doesn't the hotline work? We do have a hotline, Mr. Speaker, and that is supposed to be manned by people who are paid every fortnight. For some reason, they sometimes don't man it. It is basically, Mr. Speaker, to do with competence and the ability of our people. Talking about mediocre performance, incompetent people is an issue that is found everywhere, not only in PNG Power, but even in departments everywhere in this country. And I have raised this issue time and time again as minister. But for some reason, things don't work. So that is an ongoing issue that we all have to keep our people on toes to manage it. And I admit that it is an ongoing issue, just like all the other hotlines that we have, those issues that are ongoing, and we're still trying to get our head around it, Mr. Speaker, and I admit that it is an issue that has been of concern to me as Minister responsible. Moving on, Mr. Speaker, to the next couple of questions. There are a combination of reasons why we have our company, PNG Power, in the situation it is now. Firstly, mainly to do with mostly legacy issues, which has taken more than 20 years for this company to get to where it is. I've been minister for more than 2 or 3 years, and I know the problems. I can only admit that there is a combination of factors that has led to the situation our company is in now. Firstly, dealing with the competency of the people who are employed in PNG Power. Secondly, dealing with the aging infrastructure we have. Thirdly, dealing with the lack of attention, appropriate attention by numerous governments over the years, more than 20 years. But one thing that we have done is, when we started by engaging a company called Coda Menta some years ago, and they were able to establish the root causes of the situation PNG Power is in. I admit that there is a lot of work that needs to be done. There are a number of factors which are equally important: the aging infrastructure, plus the financial performance of the company itself, plus the lack of finance to be able to import and bring in machinery, up-to-date machinery, which can be able to provide uninterrupted power to our various consumers right throughout the country. So all of those factors have been identified. We know where the problem is, and I must take this opportunity to thank and commend our Prime Minister, who is also much aware of the problems, and he has given support to the Ministry and KCH in terms of having access to finance from ADB. We are able to attract finance, and we know what can be done. It will not take 2 months to fix this problem. We have already identified the root cause of the problems. There are too many, but the 3 most important ones leading to, especially dealing with the competency of our employees, those will be attended to. We actually, I must say, Mr. Speaker, I must admit I have been very overactive in trying to bring this situation to a closer, but at the same time bearing in mind the fact that when a minister intervenes every day, it can be accused of political interference. There is a fine balancing act that we need to be careful, but we've now been able to source some funds. We've identified the root causes, and we have started work, and starting December, we've seen some gradual improvement. In the case of lack of power to other areas, starting with Pacific Province, the good governor has been reminding me many times, and I have tried my best to work with him. These are ongoing issues. Plans have been made to purchase gensets for areas that we have identified. Some are on the way now. Some are about to be purchased. We are not sitting back. We have identified the problems, and the next couple of months, you will see gradual improvements in PNG Power. We will slowly turn this company around such that before the end of the year, it will be a company that many of us will be proud of. All we need, Mr. Speaker, is time, now that we've already identified all the problems. So I can confidently stand before all of us and say that we will be able to turn this power company around very soon. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member Long, Wow Warrior.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for allowing me to ask my question on behalf of my good people of Wow Warrior. But before me ask you a question, I would like to pass my people's New Year greetings to you, Mr. Speaker, and to the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, and the opposition leader, and all the ministers and members of this honorable House. My question is directed to the good Minister of Works and Highway, and the member for the good people of Telefomin, Honorable Solan Mirisim. My question is related to the Wow Bulolo Highway. Mr. Speaker, Wow Bulolo Highway is the oldest highway in this country. It is a national highway and starts at 9 Mile at the Huon Gulf district in Morobe province and ends in Wow town in the new Wow Warrior district. It was built after the World War II by our good neighbor, the Australians. Therefore, it is over 70 years old highway. It has served this country before independence, during independence, and continue to serve the country today. It contributes to the economy of this country second only to the Islands Highway. Mr. Speaker, in June 2021, our good Prime Minister and the late Honorable Sam Basil went to Wow Town and launched the Wow Bulolo Highway Rehabilitation Program. However, which will be funded by our good neighbor again, the Australians. However, ironically, Mr. Speaker, the program will start at 9 Mile in Huon Gulf, but will end at Pine Top, that's in Bulolo. But the Wow Bulolo Highway is named Wow Bulolo Highway. It starts at 9 Mile and it should end in Wow Town. Mr. Speaker, Wow Town has contributed so much to this country since 1920s. Now, I want to ask the good Minister for Works and Highway, can you advise the people of Wow Warrior, why have we been neglected or missed out in this rehabilitation program? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That will be all my question.
Honorable Minister of Works.
Thank you. Me too, kasi sebelah time lo thank you lo. Member lo Wow Warrior na all people belongan. Greetings kam lo people lo telehomin. Happy New Year lo you. Mr. Speaker, Wow Bulolo Road lo 10 of 9 Mile na golo Wow Bulolo amol osid ibin funding the road. Now also counterpart fund want them government to put gini. Ibin got all delay. Now this la project ibin come up na rehabilitation. Na working up in come up hari api go na lo last year. So before the election, I work only awarding me go 2 pla contractor. 1 pla contractor start lo 9 Mile 10 off. Na kamo kata lo muming lo this pla wara. Why say got people flood is a stop long eh? Na igat narapla kontrakta I must go stop lo wow. But then igat already scope can he come up lo display highway. But igat some la walk he walk lo come up lo display road start lo 9 Mile. Na all funding lo mipla lo counterpart fund lo Australia. Time you make him walk and all funds by coming. Mipla he put him money, mipla he give him money, work to go, money to go. So, online do mipla still wolo funding mispla road, tupla contractor stablo road. Mipla pa continue golo bulolo, but lo golo wow, mipla by continue lo extend him because delay been coming up now. So display yeah, aba mipla extend him display road, lo start lo wow na go kata lo bulolo. Bulolo mipla sabo se one bla nupla district. Bulolo but wow warrior hem nupla district na two display road and by finish lo wow. So display road em is sabo sem. Road to emi Longwell Greek na tupla contracta está finish. Patami bla star lo bulo na golo wow. Emba mi bla I putim na lo tenda lo. Sidna bla contracta lo start lo. Bulo na go finish him lo wow. So lo display ya andani lo connect PNG because I'm counterpart funding. So mi like sorry member want them people blow wow worry house. Display ya emba golo tenda pam bla star lo bulo na go talo. Wow. Thank you. Speaker.
Honorable Member Long. Bulolo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will just go straight to my short and sharp question, and it is directed to the Minister for Mining. This is in regard to the need to amend the Mining Act 1992, particularly with regards to protecting the landowner rights, especially with regards to alluvial mining. Mr. Speaker, to you, if the mining department hasn't started work on amending the Mining Act yet, does it have any plans to maybe push for an alluvial mining act, one which will protect landowner rights over other citizens? At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, we would like to protect him for Papa ground. Thank you.
Minister of Mining.
Thank you, Member for Bulolo, for that important question. At present, we have made appropriate changes to the law that protects the landowners. Under the law now, only landowners can operate alluvial gold mining. That is the law. But there are times where exploration licenses have been issued to land over those alluvial operations. So I agree, there is some adjustment that needs to be made, because only nationals can do alluvial gold mining. And that is the law. But unfortunately, the current law is that somebody can get an exploration license over the area in which you have the legal right to operate alluvial mining. And that is the area that we are trying to sort out. And the good minister, a good member, to answer your question, we are now in the process of introducing a Mining Amendment Act to address the sensitive areas or unclear areas in this field of alluvial gold mining and exploration activities. So we have a situation where you could have you could be doing alluvial mining on your land, and then all of a sudden somebody can come along and apply for a mining license over your land. And I think that's the area we are trying to clear up by way of law, so that when you have a alluvial mining license on your own land, because you are a customary landowner, then you should also have your own mining license as well. But these were done before my time, and my department is fully aware of this area of conflict or possible conflict, and they are trying to fine-tune the law so that any areas of conflict we will have. With regard to the rights of alluvial gold miner and rights of an exploration license holder, we can adjust those areas so that we don't have conflict. But member's question is very, very important and very, very relevant. It's one of the most important subject matters for to be addressed in the coming Mining Amendment Act. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member Lopomio.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question, without notice, is to the Minister for Education. The Minister for Education, Science, Research, Technology, Minister for Lands, and Minister for Community Development, take note, please. When presenting the department's annual report of 2021 last year, in last Parliament session, the Minister made mention of the progress of phasing out the outcome-based education and replacing it with the standard-based curriculum and other positive interventions. One of such intervention is the announcement that the government of PNG and the Marape Rosso government will or has relaunched the behavioral management policy to address discipline and violence and focus on well-being of students and teachers. It is enlightening, Mr. Speaker, to hear this announcement from Education Department, especially during this time when we are faced with challenges in increasing social disorder, leading to lack of discipline, respect, and moral values in our schools, from early childhood to secondary schools and our tertiary institutions. Mr. Speaker, the reintroduction of the behavioral management policy will restore confidence in our schools as we embark on making our schools environment credible, respectful, highly valued in creating quality education for present and future generations. Mr. Speaker, my questions are, can the Minister provide for our information their plans or strategies as they will use to implement this particular important policy so that it will be sustainable with the aim to build a culture of behavioral change in our schools? Secondly, Mr. Speaker, second question is, we have seen many schools' properties destroyed due to land issues. Can the Department of Education, in consultation with the Department of Lands, Land Title Commission, Provincial Lands, conduct assessment and establish titles where all primary schools, secondary schools, tertiary institutions are located in the country, so corrective measures are in place as part of behavioral management policy to create secure learning environment for our school children? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Member for Pomio, for a very good question. Yes, the department has launched the behavioral management policy possibly last year. At the beginning of last year, it was launched in one of the NCDC schools by the Governor General to be incorporated with our curriculum, and that is to do with the personal development programs in various sectors in education, from the elementary all the way to our schools. And it is very important that the behavior and attitude of our students in our schools are very important, and it is the different agencies responsible, while the school is taking the lead in providing that environment to guide and help and shape the development of our children in the classrooms. We also requested our churches, because that policy applies to all stakeholders, churches, community leaders, and business partners, to also come in to help educate and develop our students while at the early age in the schools.
Honourable Members of Parliament. Milek Tok Sawe lo des Parliament also Prime Minister of Australia, Honourable Anthony Albanese, MP now staff inside lo Banis lo des Parliament. One time talk right lo all the honourable members. Me inviting Prime Minister lo come na sit down lo des floor lo des House Parliament lo yumi. ask him lo this la motion that this la parliament by hamamas lo togorai longen usat I one bell lo this la motion togai usat no one bell lo this la motion tog no all one bell I togorai. Yes, Prime Minister of Australia, Honorable Anthony Albanese. Marky Mouse, Lodesla Parliament, 118 members, Lodesla Parliament. Mipla, like wishing you, belated Happy New Year, lo you, na Parliament, lo Australia, na people of Australia. One time desla, make a big lahamamas true. Lo Marky Mouse long, order member lo desla Parliament. Lo talk hamamas, na welcoming you. Lo come inside lo desfla House Parliament, lo mipla, lo Papua New Guinea, where desfla. Parliament ya give long government lo Australia giving people lo Papua New Guinea. Come lo you tete, you #1 man, or leader, or prime minister lo one black country lo come inside lo Parliament lo mipla, number you give him address lo desla Parliament. All people will be able to Papua New Guinea tete all will harim. No radio we stop. All samlai look lo television. Na look him all sem. Prime Minister of Australia by me address him country blomipla. Believe blomipla all sem tete ba talk by him make him. By strong him desla. Walk bung namel lo Australia na Papua New Guinea. So one time desfla. Me now got big hamamas. Lo invite him you, long give him address for you, lo this la Parliament, na people lo country, lo this la Papua New Guinea. Mr. Prime Minister, thank you.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Honourable Prime Minister, Leader of the Opposition, Honourable Members and Friends. Gutpla Morning Gata. Thank you for your warm and your generous welcome to Papua New Guinea. I am delighted to be the first Australian Prime Minister to visit Papua New Guinea since 2018. And I am deeply, deeply honoured to be the first foreign head of government to address your Parliament. And what a magnificent Parliament this is. A building rich with art and culture and tradition of Papua New Guinea's proud history and identity. A chamber alive with optimism for the future of this nation and the progress of your people. Australia and Papua New Guinea are the closest of neighbours. We are the greatest of friends. For thousands of years, Torres Strait Islanders and the Indigenous traders of PNG shared culture and kinship, exchanging goods and ideas. That thread runs unbroken through us today, to our modern trade links, our evolving business and investment ties, our migrants and expats, our expanding fields of cultural and educational exchange. Even, of course, our shared passion for rugby league. We are friends. We are mates. We are partners. We are equals. We are neighbours who stand with each other and help each other in times of need. Australians will never forget the heroism and humanity of the brave souls who, some 8 decades ago, came from all over this country to serve and fight alongside our soldiers in defence of this land and in defence of Australia's freedom too. Or in recent times, the 100 members of Kumul Force deployed in Operation Bushfire Assist to help Australia in the devastating Black Summer of 2019-2020. PNG was one of the very first countries to offer Australia assistance, and Kumul Force was the biggest international contingent that was deployed. And on behalf of all Australians, I simply say thank you true. Honourable members, over there on the table I can see the ceremonial mace, a gift from the Parliament and the people of Australia to the first Papua New Guinea House of Assembly in 1964, a crown symbol of authority that dates back centuries to the mothers of parliaments in Westminster. And yet, entwined with the gold leaf and silver plate, at the core of your mace is something that is unique, a polished stone ball representing the head of a traditional club. There is profound truth bound up in that. Australia gave your first assembly a symbol of our support and respect and also affection, a demonstration of the precious value we place on our country's deep and lasting friendship, and a token of gratitude for the extraordinary service your people gave to ours in the darkest days of the Second World War. But the true weight, the real power and the great strength at the heart of that democratic symbol comes from Papua New Guinea. It comes from you, your people, your culture, your courage, your talent and your intellect and ambition. That was the truth at the core of the movement to independence, now nearly half a century ago, because independence was not Australia's gift to give. It was the people of Papua New Guinea's right to assert. It was your opportunity to seize. In this land of extraordinary contrasts and variety in landscapes and traditions and languages, people united around a deep faith in democracy and a powerful commitment to family and community and care for their neighbours. Independence was, as my great predecessor Gough Whitlam said on that day of celebration in 1975, an idea whose time has come. And it arrived not as a contested act of revolution, but rather as a considered statement of national maturity, of national unity, and also a national ambition for PNG to serve as a leader in the region. As Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare said at the first South Pacific Forum that PNG attended as a member state, and I quote Sir Michael Somare, "We are not here to rock the boat, but to add another, in order that our voyage to that glorious destination may be reached." Nearly half a century later, we are still on that voyage together. And yes, there have been rough seas and tough times, but our friendship has held true. And now on the horizon, A world of opportunity awaits us because Australia and Papua New Guinea are bound not just by a shared past and a shared border, but by a common determination to shape our own futures, to seize the opportunities of this moment in this region. This can be a decisive decade for peace, prosperity, unity and security in the Indo-Pacific. As two big Pacific Ocean states, Australia and PNG must work as equals with our fellow Pacific states to build a stronger, safer, more secure region. All of us have a part to play in realising that vision. And tied in with that, all of us who serve as parliamentarians have a unique opportunity and a particular responsibility to defend the democracy in which we serve. And we fulfil that duty best by demonstrating the value of this place and the ideals that it is built on, by proving that the system we belong to has the power to change people's lives for the better. This begins with ensuring that every girl and boy has the right to grow up happy and safe and with the opportunity to get a great education. The government I lead is committed to strengthening Australia's education partnership with PNG, working with you on the important priorities you've identified, including the early years and vocational education and training, and making sure that equality for women and girls goes far beyond the opportunity to attend school. We know every nation can do better and do more to achieve this, from greater economic empowerment to preventing domestic and family violence to achieving equality in representation. I am proud to lead the first Australian government in 122 years where the majority of our members are women. And I want to congratulate the two new women members elected to this place. You are representatives and you are trailblazers, and I hope you inspire a new generation of women and girls to serve their country and their democracy. Equality for women is fair, it is right, and it is powerful economic reform. It boosts productivity, participation and drives growth because it means drawing on the talent and initiative and enterprise of the whole population, not just half of it. Friends, education is a mighty weapon against disadvantage, and equality is a powerful lever for economic growth. But recent years have provided the world with a vivid reminder that healthy economies depend, above all, on healthy people. Australia will continue to provide support to PNG's health priorities, including in infectious diseases such as TB, HIV, child and maternal health and malaria. And we are proud that the Australian-funded Angao Hospital was completed last year in Lae. This new facility will serve an area that is home to over 1 million people and make a major contribution to boosting access to health care in PNG. Prime Minister Marape, as you know, it was a Pangu government and an Australian Labor government that worked together to usher in a new era for Papua New Guinea half a century ago. In 2023, I want our two governments to work together to unlock a new generation of prosperity for your nation, to boost our two-way trade in everything from coffee and cocoa to fisheries and tourism, and to bolster the significant direct investment made by the Australian private sector in PNG, which already stands at some $24 billion. More than we invest in India, more than we invest in Indonesia, more than we invest in Malaysia, right here in Papua New Guinea. I understand PNG is eager to expand your exports of more processed goods and varied agricultural products, and I see these as areas where the Australian business community can play a key role. Our government also stands ready to assist PNG to improve your biosecurity regime to enable your farmers and producers to access international markets. And as the world looks to a more sustainable model for growth, PNG has a tremendous opportunity to expand your green economy. I know a number of Australian companies are keen to explore what can be done in this area, including in hydro and hydrogen production, for example. Together, I am confident that we can ensure that the rich natural resources of Papua New Guinea are made to deliver good jobs, lasting investment and sustainable development for your nation. But our friendship is deeper than trade, and our partnership and cooperation and engagement should reach beyond it. Infrastructure is a long-standing policy passion of mine, and I'm proud that Australia is working with PNG to deliver an ambitious program of nation-building projects, upgrading ports to create jobs and clear away bottlenecks, as well as opening the door for developing export industries, building and maintaining a better road network to make it easier for farmers to get their product to market and to ensure that communities have more reliable access to good services. And here, on the threshold of the biggest markets and the fastest growing economies in the world in human history, digital and communications infrastructure is every bit as vital as roads and ports. This is why Australia built the Coral Sea Cable and is helping to build a productive and competitive telecommunications market for PNG. It's important and right that the Australian Infrastructure Financing Facility for the Pacific has a strong pipeline of projects here in PNG, and I look forward to following their progress and celebrating their completion. Friends, in the years ahead, Australia and Papua New Guinea have a chance to honour our shared history of service in the cause of peace by adding to it, deepening our defence ties and enhancing our national security cooperation, and achieving a swift conclusion to negotiations on a bilateral security treaty, a treaty that will underpin our work together to address PNG's priority needs, including law and order challenges, strengthening the justice system and strengthening the rule of law, a treaty based on deep trust, and a treaty that builds on the family-first approach to regional security, an example to others and an investment in the future of our partnership. In the same spirit of regionalism, we're expanding opportunities for PNG citizens to travel and work in Australia. Through the Working Holiday Visa, the Pacific Engagement Visa, and in particular, the Pacific Australia Labour Mobility Scheme. Australian farmers and producers benefit from the expertise and industry of your people. Just as importantly, the people of PNG earn good wages and develop new skills that they can use to support their families, educate their children, and invest in opportunities that will deliver future prosperity for themselves and for PNG. And Prime Minister Marape, my government backs your ambition to significantly increase the number of PNG workers who take part in this program in Australia and contribute to the future prosperity of both of our nations. Honourable members, all of you appreciate that our region is on the front line of the global fight against climate change. Our Pacific neighbours are counting on the PNG and Australia to support international cooperation, to show leadership and to take action. There is not a moment to waste. It is up to our generation to protect the precious and unique natural environment of our rainforests, our reefs and our coasts, to build and plan our infrastructure so our communities are more resilient and better prepared for natural disasters. It is the responsibility of our generation to ensure that our farmers and producers do not suffer irreversible damage to their land and their livelihoods. And it is a great opportunity of our generation to grasp the transformative economic benefits of clean energy technology, all of which is why I'm very pleased that PNG will be joining the Indo-Pacific Carbon Offset Scheme. Honourable members, when Prime Minister Marape and I watched the State of Origin together in Suva last year, he said there are only 3 days that your country stops. Game 1, Game 2 and Game 3 of State of Origin. That is something I think that a lot of Australians can relate to. And it was great to see so many people getting off the Air Niugini flights in Brisbane to support the talent of the Kumals and the Orchids in the Prime Minister's 13 matches. And today I affirm my view that I want to see a PNG-based team, Pacific Islanders, competing in the National Rugby League competition. Whether it is rugby league or cricket with the Barras and the Luas, or the work being done here by the AFL, sport is such a genuine and powerful way of building strong and lasting ties between our peoples at a code and club and community and family level. And the same is true for education and art and cultural exchange. My government will continue to support programs that deepen understanding and strengthen connections between Australians and the people of Papua New Guinea. Because at the heart of our two nations' friendship is that sense of respect and connection between equals. Honourable members, tomorrow I will travel to Wewak to pay my respects at the resting place of Grand Chief Sir Michael Somare. Before I left for this visit, I was shown a photo taken in 1974 at an event in my hometown of Sydney. The Grand Chief, holding on to part of a two-pronged spear, which is just broken across his knee into 2 pieces. One was given to Gough Whitlam, the other to the great Matuan leader, Oala Oala Rawaru of Pari village. This gesture was a symbol of peace, but also the signifier of a pact, of a promise between 2 leaders, a new path of friendship, mateship and common accord, a bond between equals. I am proud to say today that Australia is determined to continue to honour that promise. We stand with you. We hold true. Our 2 nations are bound together. Now let us build together a future of peace, prosperity and opportunity for all. Thank you. Chualgate. Lukamu Bihan. Thank you very much. See you again.
We now ask him, Honorable Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, to make him talk long.
Mr. Speaker, let me firstly appreciate and thank you and all members of Parliament on both sides of the House for allowing and welcoming my good friend, the Australian Prime Minister, Right Honourable Anthony Albanese, who have just addressed our People's National Parliament. I want to thank Prime Minister Albanese and your entire delegation for finding time, firstly, to visit Papua New Guinea. The address to our People's House, the National Parliament, is indeed historic and entrances this peculiar shared history of our two nations. Mr. Speaker, in case young Papua New Guineans and Australians forget, we were a territory under Australian sovereignty before 1975. This time, 50 years ago, we were all Australians, and the Australian Labor Party was in government, and the then Prime Minister, the Honourable Gough Whitlam, supported the fathers of our country, Papua New Guinea, led by none other than Sir Michael Somare, and hence our nationhood was granted. And so it is again in 2023 that the two parties, the great Australian Labor Party and the Pangu Party, 48 years later, meet to consolidate our common bond and consider the path for the future as a family nation, as family nations. Mr. Speaker, for the first time, an Australian Prime Minister makes a warm, reassuring statement in our national parliament, indicating that both nations are equal and are equal development partners and will grow side by side going on into the future. Mr. Speaker, I noted that Prime Minister Albanese recognizes our shared past and also identifies most, if not all, of our contemporary issues in our bilateral relationship, that both countries must work for the betterment of our two people. Mr. Speaker, I would like to inform you and this Parliament that this afternoon our bilateral meeting will take place, discussing all issues pertaining to how we want our relationship with Australia to be fine-tuned. Issues like immigration and visa, education and work opportunities, commerce, trade and investments, including export of our products, sports development, including NRL bid, access to continued soft credit and grant facilities from Australian facilities that are available closer to home, support for our law and justice sector, including police, military exchanges, public service work exchanges, and of course the alignment of Australian aid programs to our country's development priorities will be amongst those issues that we will discuss in our meeting. Mr. Speaker, I don't want this historic address to our People's House to be wasted. This is a bilateral milestone between Australia and PNG in the face of Papua New Guinea's 50th independence anniversary coming up in 2025. My friend, the Australian Prime Minister, is here in our Parliament listening, and I want to assure you, Mr. Speaker, we shall prosper our national development agenda with Australia so that Papua New Guinea becomes better, stronger, and safer in all senses, especially from the economic independent perspective of our present generation of leaders. As it was Australia Labour Party and Whitlam in 1973 to 1975 that allowed Papua New Guinea, Pangu Party, and Somare to drive into political independence. So must it be Australia today, Labour Party today, and Albanese in 2023 to assist Papua New Guinea, assist Pangu Party, and my generation of leaders to drive PNG into the economic independence destination we so sought. Mr. Speaker, you and me have agreed many times that a nation claiming to be political independence without economic strength is a weak nation. And in that focus for economic gain, Papua New Guinea and Australia is operating presently under the Comprehensive Strategic Economic Partnership Agreement we saw signed with my government and the previous Morrison government in 2020 . Today's coming of Prime Minister Albanese has a touch of bettering the heights we have reached with Australia in the last 3 years. An economically independent Papua New Guinea is a better, stronger, safer Papua New Guinea. A better, stronger, safer PNG is a better, stronger, safer Australia and the Indo-Pacific region. One cannot talk about Indo-Pacific without progressing the Papua New Guinea agenda because we are right in the heart and the center of this confluence, the Indo-Pacific confluence. In order for PNG to participate in a safer Indo-Pacific region, Papua New Guinea herself must be stronger economically. Papua New Guinea must be a strong economic nation. So, Mr. Speaker, our focus on ramping up trade, business free flow of exports, and our people to Australia will be a main issue of discussions with the Australian leadership we are so privileged to have today. This is not just a social conversation, it is deep economic strategy of our nation. To my brother Prime Minister Albanese, let me place my people on my people's handset my great appreciation of you taking the trip to PNG and thus consolidating our government-to-government relationships. But rather for me, more importantly, the people-to-people relationship must be consolidated. And even greater, the business-to-business relationships must be consolidated. And my heart is warmed hearing from your statement that you are in total embrace of the key policy initiatives of this Pangu government, especially in the face of strengthening the economic gains of my country. And I sincerely look forward to our meeting later today. Mr. Speaker, on your behalf, and our people's behalf, let me pass through Prime Minister Albanese our people's appreciation and thank you all manners of help Australian people, Australian governments, and Australian leaders, past and present, have rendered to our country the last 47 years past. And most recently, during the COVID-19 times, the help from Australia assisted our recovery efforts. And it would be unfair of me not to place our appreciation in this moment when you are with us in our people's house. Australia is not just our bilateral partner, but a parent nation to us, for you birthed us in 1975. And since then, PNG is littered with so many inputs and imprints are obvious. Assistance like aids and grants, infrastructure development, your latest budget support to my government, the credit finance accessing, and of course, importantly, the human resource developments that we continue to embrace and support, your foreign direct investments to Papua New Guinea, and lastly but not the least, many of our Christian churches that continue to find support from Australia. Let me say on behalf of the entire people of this country, from the youngest to the oldest, our sincere appreciation for Australia's continuous help to Papua New Guinea. Australia has been the biggest helper to our national development endeavors and I want to say a hearty thank you. And may I say my generation of leaders here today in Parliament from the both sides, I want to convey the opposition leaders' apology on his behalf for his lack of presence here. I hope he's well. For you to meet him later. He did inform our Parliament a few days ago he was feeling unwell, and so I do apologize for his lack of presence. But we, on both sides, are in full support and appreciate your coming here. And we say we do not take Australia for granted. We do not take Australia for granted. And we look forward to work with your leadership in your country for a mutual benefit for both countries going into the future. In the last 3 years, we have started massive reform work based on our focus to take back our PNG and put it on the road to full economic independence our father's generation saw in 1975. These reforms include fighting corruption head-on, and we have thus set up the Independent Commission Against Corruption. This reform includes us setting up the Sovereign Wealth Fund so that we save for our children's generation. This reform includes reforming our public service and our state-owned enterprises, working with multilateral stakeholders like IMF and World Bank and ADB, and key amongst them is merit-based appointment in those key agencies of state, including our state-owned enterprises. Economically, we are focused on our fiscal consolidation pathway. Going forward into the future, we will be pursuing aggressive debt reduction strategy once we come out fully from the clutches of the global economic turbulences caused by COVID-19 and lately the unfortunate Russian-Ukraine war. We are also spreading, Mr. Prime Minister, through you, Mr. Speaker, all our development efforts throughout all parts of our country, leaving no place behind, no child behind, including the special autonomous region of Bougainville. Above are some reforms we are doing, so Mr. Prime Minister, be rest assured that all help Australia is rendering to PNG is in good, safe, and trusted hands of Congo Party, your partner since 1975. Mr. Speaker, on your behalf, I want to wish our good friend and brother and the Prime Minister of Australia, the Right Honourable Anthony Albanese and his delegation, a pleasant stay and a safe journey to Wewak, Isipik, to pay respect to the first Prime Minister of Papua New Guinea, the father of this nation, the great Grand Chief Sir Michael Thomas Somare, a gesture we shall not forget. On this note, I conclude by wishing you and your official delegation a very successful trip, a safe stay over, and may God bless you and take you safe back to Australia. May God Tadagali Wape, or Yesu, as we say in PNG, bless you always. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honourable Parliament, Milak Tuksawe Olsem, the Honourable Prime Minister of Australia, by Iksim Malaloblong now. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, thank you through. Me like antabim talk thank you lo Prime Minister na you lo. All members believe me long allow him Prime Minister belong Australia long come in long Parliament and make him address no response by Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, me like move us immediately in Parliament go long tomorrow 10 a.m.
Honourable members, before me entertain him, this will move long. Leader of Government Business, me like talk clear the soul, no you mill house. No this la Parliament on some plenty time. Baibla no salugim speaker iksim this la sia. This la sia. Emino blong, member blo manos. MC blo people blo Papua New Guinea. na any time something can happen lo des flaman. Em sit down today. Now all sem the soul. You miss a talk lo succession plan. Em speaker na wala larim, deputy speaker, assistant speaker ole kam na kisim lainim lo des fla. Walk em sit down. So suppose one plus something may happen tomorrow long em. Ikat man I ready lo kisim deslasia. Tok sabe tu long all newspaper sem post Korea. Plani time by the speaker em absent. Em no na ko paine mouth. Speaker is all office on ogat. Em putim lo paper also people lo manus by look him. Speaker no got one bla sia inside lo desla floor ya. So time em stop walking walk longan na larim. Ol arbla lo kam kisim na kisim walk line him. Em stop lo office walk him narbla walk. So one them desla ask him now we go lo motion blong leader block government business. Usat ihamamas lo desla itoko right that parliament by agent go tomorrow. Itok yes. Usat inahamas tok nogat. When I'm point over W.
That's a very important question raised by one of the members of parliament. The education minister was answering the question, and there was an interruption. And so, can you make a ruling that you give him the opportunity tomorrow when we come in for him to answer this very important question?
Thank you, point over W. Honorable Deputy Opposition Leader, point over W in order. Tomorrow time you may come back. And Minister of Education by finishing answering this question. Thank you. One time this leader of government business. Parliament now. I'm here 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.